Last night, I camped perched on the rim of this stunning canyon. It's day 5 of my week in Utah. Due to extreme winds blasting across the desert all week, I ended up moving on past a couple of places I had originally intended to camp. As a result, I have found myself with an entire unplanned day before I meet up with locals Jared and Mike tomorrow morning. So today, I'm just going to explore and hopefully find a campsite for tonight that is sheltered from these unrelenting winds.
Well, I've only just left camp and I'm on sort of a high point, and I can see over there, sort of on the other side of the valley, if you can call this a valley, some like cliffs and formations and stuff. And I think I can see what that is on Gaia GPS, and it looks like there's some interesting contours. The wind has been coming from this way, and it looks like there's cliffs that may block that wind. So I'll go poke around in there. It's not very far away.
Most of the Utah desert is public land, so it was not at all difficult to find a road heading through the area I spotted. Unfortunately, there are no spur trails that go up to the base of these cliffs. No campsite here, so I'm just going to keep going and see where this road takes me.
Well, I didn't really come out here to do mountain stuff, but man, it's pretty intriguing. I don't want to camp up at any higher elevation than I'm already at, because it got pretty cold last night. Maybe we can explore a bit.
For a completely improvised, unplanned excursion, this got really interesting really quickly. I love how it's a completely different sort of ecosystem almost. I'm really not even that far from last night's campsite, and pretty much the same elevation, I think, pretty close. And all of a sudden, the vegetation is different. There's some granite that has obviously come down off of that mountain that's looming above us. And I had no idea this trail was going to get a little bit rock crawly. To say I am really happy with the truck. I love the space that it's given me. I love my camping space now. It's just so great. Like on a night like last night when there was just so much wind it was impossible to be outside, it was just fine to hang out inside the canopy and just enjoy the scenery outside. And then just the fact that I can take this little camper, it just drives up over everything. It's a really turned out to be a great setup because it's capable enough to get to these crazy places. It's small enough to, hit some of these narrow trails, but then I still have this really practical, comfortable camping setup. I am just really happy with how this has turned out. Okay, so that shot you just saw of the truck driving in front of the mountain there, I had to go, I don't know, about 120 yards out to set that shot up the way I wanted. And right where I decided to put down my tripod, there was this random old rusty tin can. And I thought that was really weird because there is just zero evidence of, you know, anybody ever living up here. I didn't see any cabins or any like roads going off to the side. So I started looking around a little further and I could see a pile of rocks that did not look naturally formed. It was like someone clearly piled those rocks there. And looking at that, I spotted a juniper branch that definitely had been cut by an axe. Then I spotted what looked like a piece of metal.
Is that a hubcap? That's where the valve stem would go? That has got to be some old hubcap. Alright. It's part of the history. It stays there.
And so I went over and looked in that little draw and found a few spots where some of the juniper branches and entire trees had been cut down with an axe. Very, very lucky to stumble into that tiny bit of history, whatever that history was, but there was a tin can right where I was going to set up my shot. And those are all details that would have gone right past me before, you know, a tin can. I mean, I wouldn't have even given it a second thought. But after a couple of years of watching the Coyote Works channel, Casey, that's what he does. I mean, he just goes out in search of that kind of stuff. I have learned from him how to take notice of little bits of evidence of previous human activity, like old rusty tin cans. Oh. I don't know, looks like old spring something or other, maybe an old seat of a car, maybe? Anyway, noticing signs of historic activity, such as old random rusty metal bits, wood that has been cut down with an axe. If you enjoy that kind of thing, I would definitely encourage you to check out Casey's channel, Coyote Works. Really beautiful desert scenery in Oregon, and lots and lots of interesting history. It's unbelievable what he turns up. Well, I don't really have any sort of like destination, goal, plan, or anything. I just found this road up into the mountains and I'm just driving up it to see where it goes. I see on the map it is going to come to some sort of a pass, so I'll at least get up to that and maybe there'll be a view. This is really, really lovely as I got down into this little valley here, and there's these, I guess they're aspen, really pretty white bark, and they're just starting to leaf out. We're up at 7,600 feet already, so I don't know that I would camp up in here, although man, it sure is gorgeous. reached that pass and we are at 9,237 feet. That is a new record for me driving by a long shot. The highest I've ever got to in northeastern Oregon was 7,900 feet, I think. And this is a big jump up. Wow. Wow. I don't know that I've ever been at that elevation ever, other than in an airplane. So it looks like there's this little trail up to the top of this little bump here. Doesn't look like too long of a walk. I live at just barely over sea level, and even when I'm up at 4,000 feet, I can feel the lack of oxygen. So at 9,000 feet, I'm definitely not good for a lot of hiking and climbing. I just want to get up here and see if I can see what's on the other side of the pass. What? Look at how red it is. Oh my gosh, it's so red. And look at these beautiful little alpine sort of meadows. Still some snow on that road there. It is cold up here. The truck thermometer said 57 degrees. So that's quite a bit colder than it has been down at, 4,000 feet.
I'm headed back down the mountain the way I came because I don't want to get too far away from where I'm meeting the Backroad Exploration crew tomorrow morning. As I cooked a pretty solid breakfast this morning, I wasn't really hungry for lunch, but I'm taking a little break in a completely empty campground I found alongside this creek that I keep crossing.
I have not seen a soul since getting off the highway. That first trail up along the flank of the mountain and then this road going up into the mountains. Nobody, just nobody. It's nice. Found a campsite for tonight. I am partway up into the mountains here. I can also look off and see a bunch of the places that I've been all week long. Nice fire pit, and I love these little trees. They're like barely taller than me. They actually remind me of the hoodoos at Goblin Valley. It's like these little dwarfed goblin trees. The best thing is there's no wind, almost no wind. Gentle little breeze now and then, sometimes nothing at all. Every place else out there, by this time of day, that would have been just gusting, sometimes 50, 60 mile an hour gusts. So this is just great. I've just been going really hard nonstop all week. I'm happy to pause and have sort of a restful afternoon and evening and sort of re-energize and before heading out with Jared and Mike for the next couple of days starting tomorrow morning. I am at 6,200 feet here, which is higher elevation than I wanted to be at because I didn't really come prepared for really like cold camping. I've got my summer sleeping bag. It's not super warm. I got a little bit chilly last night and had to put an extra layer on in bed. I do have my electric blankets. I don't have any way to heat the space. I think I'll be all right.
As it's looking to be a chilly night and there's no wind to speak of, I'm prepping firewood for what will be the first campfire of the entire trip. Good evening and welcome to another episode of Cooking with Juniper. With me as always is my friend Jenny. No, I'm just kidding. That's ridiculous. Obviously, trees don't cook, they make their own food. Photosynthesis. I considered leaving the mushrooms out tonight, but my buddy Scott is always disappointed if I don't put mushrooms in a dish. So, Scott, this is for you.
Oh yeah, look at those beauties.
This is all gonna get combined back together in a sauce afterwards. So I don't mind taking them off and letting them cool. I find that each of these things cooks better on their own when everything's not crammed into the pan. I'm also going to use up the rest of those green beans. So one of the things I found with camp cooking is that cooking like rice or pasta uses a lot of water, and it uses a lot of propane to get that water up to a boil and cook those, either the rice or the pasta or whatever. It's very resource intensive. When I went through Trader Joe's to get some, random dry goods for this trip, I found these pre-cooked Thai noodles. You don't have to like boil in, 2 quarts of water for several minutes to be ready to eat. And so I decided I would give these a try. The box comes with 3 packets, and I think one of those packets is more than enough for me. These do contain wheat, which I generally try to avoid, so I think that's going to be plenty. I talk about Trader Joe's all the time. I am not in any way affiliated, sponsored, whatever. I just find it a really, really useful place to come up with fast, easy, and tasty meals, especially when I'm camping. So to pull it all together, I'm going to use this Thai-style red curry sauce, also that I found at Trader Joe's. Oh my gosh, that smells incredible. I have literally never bought this sauce before, but I'm definitely going to buy it again. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. Just like everything in Utah, this has turned out way better than I expected. When I planned this trip, I had no intention of visiting any mountains or forests or anything like that. But I am really glad I came up here. While trip planning is really important, and this week would not have been as amazing as it was without all of the planning and research that I did at home for weeks leading up to this trip. Being willing to let go of plans and just say, hey, that looks cool, let's go check it out. That's also a really important part of getting out here and doing this, because you make some amazing discoveries you never expected, and it's almost more of a pleasure when you get surprises like this. After packing up camp, I've met up with Jared and Mike, and they will be leading me through some of their favorite spots for the next 2 days. Well, it is now a couple of days later. I've just spent the past couple of days out exploring more of central Utah with Jared and Mike of Backroad Exploration. If you haven't already watched his videos of our adventure together, definitely go give them a watch, because I am not making a video about those 2 days, and they were amazing. This entire week in Utah has just simply exceeded my expectations in every possible way. Everything was bigger, more beautiful, more interesting than I even imagined it would be. Really just an unbelievable trip. I hope you've enjoyed this series of videos. It is now time to air up and head home.